Hello, everyone. Welcome back again in another sessions of what's our sessions called, Diego? Introductions to color grading, hands-on with Maxon. I hope everyone has a really nice week. And today we will continue where we left from the previous sessions. And if you are just joining, I hope that you already watched the previous sessions. But if you don't haven't watched the previous sessions can be found in the YouTube channel, the Maxon Training Team. And if you go to the Hands-on with Maxon playlist, you will see all the previous recording from the previous event. And yeah, on the first sessions, we were talking about the basics of color grading, how the tools work. And then in the second sessions, we're talking more about the acquisitions of the footage, shooting, and what type of file that you really need to be aware. And the third sessions, we are talking all about lightings, and Diego gives us some really nice tips about um, working with a Windows and creating some patterns with your Windows and working relighting with a Luma Keyer. And that was really nice one. If you missed that one, check that out in our YouTube channel. So, and by the way, in today's sessions, if you want to get a free T-shirt, you can follow the download links that I provide in the hands-out sections, and there is a there's a link that will leads you into this page, and there's a code that you can use, and you can order one of this shirt free of charge, and you just need to pay for the shipping cost, which is around about $4. And if you familiar with Maxon products, and if you would like to test your knowledge, you can do so by, oh, I'm sorry, I think I haven't shared my screen yet.
Yes, you haven't shared your screen.
I haven't shared my screen yet. Typical. So let me rewind that again. Maxon Training Team, the YouTube channel is called Maxon Training Team, as you can see. It's called the playlist. It's hands-on with Maxon. So I'm sorry, apology for this. And the free T-shirt, if you follow the provided links, download links, there's a link mentioned in the webinars, and there's a Maxon merch store. You can follow that link and use the password, and you can get one of this T-shirt free of charge. You just need to pay for the shipping cost. And then if you are familiar with Maxon products and you want to test your knowledge, you can do so by going to maxon.net/certifications. And here you can try your knowledge and use this test as a memory jogger. And also to check the upcoming events, you can go to Maxon/events. And there you can see the upcoming events. We have like another sessions of introductions to color grading, 2 more sessions, and we have VFX and chill sessions every Friday, and then also the upcoming 3D motion show. So, and by the way, today's webinar, we are joined by very special guest, Diego Yhama. Diego is a colorist based in Colombia. Tell us about yourself, Diego.
All right. Yeah, so I'm a colorist. I'm an instructor also, based in Bogota, Colombia. I have a small boutique company that we usually grade long formats, listing documentaries, films. We also like to grade video clips. We don't grade so much publicity. And yeah, that's about me. I love to mix both things, grading and education. What I think is that I mixing the both things, I have the perfect life.
That's nice to hear. And joining us today, actually another guest, Jonny McPheeters. Jonathan McPheeters, he's a colorist based in LA, and he's working at Radley Studio at the moment, and he was working with many other studios before. But unfortunately, Jonny has trouble signing in to the sessions. We'll wait a little bit. We'll wait for Jonny to show up. And in the meantime, I will walk you through what we are going to do today. So in today's sessions, we already learned the, how do you call it, the basic of color corrections in the first sessions, and then in the second sessions the pre-productions, and then the third sections was lighting. And today we'll take a peek into the workflow and pipelines inside the color grading suite. So instead of me explaining all the tools and everything, today we have the guest speakers, the expert in the industry, and they will share their secrets, so to say, their workflow to us. And one of the workflow that will be shared today is from Jonathan McPheeters, who will be talking about the pre-conformed workflow. And there are footage that you can download from the download link provided in the event page, and you can follow along. You can download the footage, you can download the EDL as well, and you can follow the recording of the sessions and try to follow along. Yes. So let me check my email. Seems like Jonny.
If you want, I can start, and we can.
Okay. Jonny is in the viewer. Jonny is in the viewer. Okay, let me search for Jonny. Let me search for Jonny. There you go.
There he is.
He is a presenter now.
There you go. Now he's
there. You go. Hi, Jonny. Welcome. Can you hear us, Jonny? You can unmute yourself now.
Yes, and you can turn on your
camera. That's great. Yeah, I was on as a viewer. I don't know, when we were in that last session, we just all dropped out.
Now you're back. Yeah.
Now you're back.
Right. Hopefully this webcam works.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go.
I previously.
Also shirt.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. It dropped out, and that's it.
It happens. Here I am. I previously took the liberty to introduce yourself. Would you mind to tell a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Jonny McPheeters. I've been a colorist in Hollywood for, well over 20 years now. I've had the fortune to work with some of the great DPs of the industry, and I got my start doing dailies at a company called Rushes, and now I do a lot of work for I'm a freelance colorist. So I do a lot of work for Radley Studios in Hollywood, and doing a lot of documentaries, and I continue to do commercials and the occasional features. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and if you're looking to become a colorist, it's a fun career. You'll have a blast.
Really
I appreciate
great.
you having me today. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, we are honored that you want to show up in our sessions, because you are going to share some of your knowledge, which is like very hard to find nowadays, man. Thank you so much, Jonny. And yeah, previously I was mentioning that you will talk about the pre-conformed workflow. Do you want to take the button and start the presentations, Jonny?
You got it.
I'll make you a presenter.
Awesome.
Screen. Okay, show my screen. Okay, and guys, hang in there with me. I am a new presenter. This is new to me, so I may trip over myself once in a while, but I'm gonna do my best, and we're gonna have some fun and learn a lot of stuff today. So
don't worry.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's go to. More color. All right. Aha.
Oh yeah, by the way, I mentioned to the audience that you kindly provided a footage for us to follow along. So if you want to follow along with what Jonny is doing today, you can go to the download page and download the footage and also the EDL. And the footage was kindly provided to us by Anthony Barry. He was here in the second sessions, and he will be here in the fifth sessions as well. So thank you, Tony.
Excellent, Tony. Yeah, a good friend. I've worked with Tony on a few projects. He's one of the best. I've enjoyed it, and he's super cool, guy. Super knowledgeable, and just pleasure to work with. And he's great. Today I'm here, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the pre-conformed color workflow. And what is it? All right, so a pre-conform. I'm just going to read it off the screen. A simple color workflow utilizing an edit decision list, or an EDL, and a single high-resolution video file. Now, this is a little different than what we usually work with. We usually, as a colorist, I'd usually get an XML or a AAF. That might, an XML might come out of a Premiere or Avid. Usually we work with AAFs, and those work with single clips, and that often will be your original camera files. We'll work with those guys. We'll have handles to work with, and that's generally the workflow that we use in Hollywood. That's what we use. But sometimes, especially for beginners, up and comers, and myself included, when we left film and it became a digital environment, the red cameras came out and Arri came out, everybody had a camera, and that's great. And I'm all for creativity, but what happens when somebody brings you a drive and says, here you go ahead and put it together, Mr. Colorist or Mrs. Colorist or Miss Colorist, figure it out. And sometimes we just don't have time to do that. We're here to color, man. That's what we want to do. We have to know a little bit about editing. We have to know a little bit about sound, but our major thing that we need to know about is color, right? So a pre-conformed color workflow, let me just go to my next slide here as we go across here. The reason you'd want to use it, well, it is simple and easy to understand. It can save you some time and money, and as I mentioned, you're going to spend a lot more time coloring than you are trying to figure out how to get all your clips to link up. There could be a lot of reasons clips don't link up. It could just be maybe, you might be working with an editor that's also new at this, and hey, we're all learning this together. The number one thing I think we got to do out there is be kind to each other, and somebody might make a mistake here and there. We just got to help each other figure it out. But when it comes down to like getting a job out the door and there's a budget, and producers don't care so much if the job, can you get it done? And as a colorist, we kind of have to help with solutions. You got to be there. I mentioned in the last session with these guys, so sometimes we got to be like an offensive tackle or somebody that's making the blocks and helping that DP look really good, or that director look good, or that producer look good. We're here to help people out. So a pre-conformed color workflow is like, that's your plan B. This is your plan B when, say, your XML and your AAFs just aren't linking up. And again, it can be a lot of different things. Stock footage can be tough. You guys have all worked on documentaries or up and comers. You get some footage from somewhere and somebody renamed it something. You're like, oh, where's that clip at? And time's ticking, and you got to get the job done. You don't want to stress. You want to just be like, okay. So the key, make sure you call your editor up and chat with them and say, hey man, or hey, what can we do to make this work? We got to get this job out the door. Could we work with some high res files that are burned out from the original files? Say it's like ProRes 444s. I like to work with those a lot. You certainly could use with TPX. You could work with DNX HD files that are large and healthy. We want, if you can find something that's an equivalent of a 444 or better, that's the key. You want to try and stay away from low bit rates. 8-bit, you can work with that stuff, but try to get some 10-bit going or higher. That's really important. And you'll find that as you color things, you might get some banding in the skies. It's very common, or on a gray wall or a white wall, it's got a little shading. That's where you're going to see banding in 8-bit, but in 10-bit, you won't quite see that. So how do we do it? It's like, well, all right, Jonny, what are we going to do next? Here's what I like to do as a colorist, and this is kind of an important thing. And comment on this once in a while if you guys want to. I like to create something called color specs. Now, if there's any editors out there listening, they have editor specs. It's like, how should we receive, as an editor, how should we receive the footage? This is kind of your roadmap or your guardrail. So a colorist has the same wants and needs. You know, we need the reason that we have color specs. Basically, color specs are created because we want to. It's kind of the roadmap. It's the roadmap for an editor to help you get the job done in a timely manner, and you know, in or at under budget, or hopefully under budget, but at budget if you can. You know, so you want to do the best job you can, and this is the way to do it. And creating some specs. I've included some. I've given some to Max.
Can I add something, Jonny? You say something really important. Is that we as a colorist, we just don't need to think on grading, because if we don't, I mean, if they send us everything what they wanted, probably we'll spend more time like trying to know how to conform that timeline coming from editorial. So what you say is so important. Have a spec list and send it to them, because that will help you. That will like save you time. And you know, our real life is that we have to make things really fast, and always we are in the deadline. So please take a screenshot of what is Jonny presenting and send it to the client. Yeah.
For the audience, which is who is like asking, what is actually a pre-conform workflow? What is it? I mean, coloring is one side, it's one story, but bringing in all the clips into Resolve is another story, right, Jonny? So what Jonny is doing is actually showing you how to bring in the project into Resolve, especially when those projects are not cut with Resolve. So
yeah, and
this is one.
When I'm sorry, Max, go ahead.
No problem, no problem. And you mentioned about the spec sheet. So those are the guidelines that you provide to your editor, right?
That's correct.
To prepare the footage, right?
Yeah.
Go on.
Just as Diego mentioned, you know, it's we want to get to color. We want to do the job as we want to get started. You know, if you're getting paid, you know, some money to get something done, you want to get to the job. You know, you don't want to mess around. I have to be honest. Back in the day when I first started coloring, I'd get these drives with not an EDL, but an XML or an AAF, and nothing would come in. Some things would come in, and we figure we work. You know, you make all those phone calls, you call around, like, why isn't this working? What can we do? You know, and some names were changed on the files or something simple like that. And you're like, oh no, you know, and then all of a sudden a day starts ticking by. And wait a minute, what if you've got some other jobs booked later in the week? You're, you know, so
you haven't conformed yet. Yes, you cannot start coloring. Exactly.
You gotta get it in, you know. So the big things on a pre-conformed color workflow, and I know this is like a backup plan, but you can also do this workflow as well. If you're, say you're doing, I do a lot of shows, not necessarily shows, but once in a while a show this way, a lot of commercials this way. Say you're doing things for broadcasts that involve maybe NFL, baseball, things with stock footage that come from whatever direction. It's easier to get, you know, a file that's already pre-conformed. You know, that means that when I say pre-conformed, that means that's the lock cut. That's it. That doesn't mean there's other things, but that doesn't mean that you might not get more clips. So if there's always something extra, you know, a commercial's never delivered until it's delivered. You know, it's never done until it airs, basically. It's always changing, right, Diego? I mean, it's always changing.
Yeah.
And so the things you want to ask for, and that doesn't mean like, okay, I'm going to go through these a little bit, but the EDL edit decision list, here's the main things an editor needs to do. Disable multicam before creating a new sequence. Basically, the editor's got to decide, okay, which clip am I going to go with? You know, what we're doing to create this flattened sequence is he's copying his sequence first, taking that, creating a new sequence, and he or she is going to flatten that thing down to a clean copy. We're removing Rec 709s, LUTs, color grades, text, graphics, mats. You know, they can leave some sizing in. Usually sizing will come across, and that's okay. You know? But if they don't want to, we can match it here in color, or we hand the project back to them and it's back in there. You know, remove fades to and from black if possible. Cross dissolves are okay. Nothing wrong with that. And then we can work with crossfades and black, and that I'll show you a little bit later. But And at the bottom here, we might need some files from you as an editor. We might need some of those original files because maybe the file's too dark and we really need to try and find the most original file that we can to dig it out. Or on a cross dissolve, say on a cross dissolve, you're dissolving from an old piece of archival footage to something new and brand new that might need a LUT or some heavy color grade to get it back into where it needs to be. So that's why we might need some of those original pieces. And, when we do turn off that multicam, sometimes, as I say, a commercial is never finished. So they might have some extra clips. Well, you can get those clips as alt clips. You can bring those in and color those and either drop them in or drop them at the tail of the project and then dump that out to the editor when you're finished. The next piece I'd like to kind of take a look at here, we're just going to go through it. These are just simple specs to go over. Provide a nice ProRes 444, the new sequence. Again, this should be log with no 709 enabled. And then you want to make sure you get a reference with everything baked in. This can be like a ProRes proxy or, any kind of smaller res file, but make sure you get a little bit of audio track on there. You just want to, in my experience, is like, things happen and something can get out of sync and you want to make sure that thing's in sync. Stuff happens. Just make sure, a lot of times folks will say, hey, you're a colorist, you don't need audio, but it's nice to have that. And the client does often, some clients don't want audio and some want it, but it's been my experience, it's kind of 50-50. So if you got it in your back pocket ready to show the client a piece with color and audio, they dig that, so it's just something that I like to get, and I like to be able to check my audio. The simple stuff is, where can I get these files? Make sure you get a quality drive. Make sure they're not giving you something with, a really slow USB 2 connection. Make sure you're getting good stuff. Don't let anybody second guess you. I had a project go one time that I was for a big company, and it was back in the day, and it was back when eSATA was the fastest thing that we had. Well, they delivered it, and didn't have eSATA as we asked, and it took a day to upload everything, to get everything in. It took a long time, and you want to get good drives. Stick with that. People forget you still need quality gear. Don't mess around with old stuff. Get notes for the look of the project, like Diego and I spoke about in the previous session. Get notes, man. Do what you ask questions. You got to ask lots of questions. Who should I speak with? If you don't ask those questions early, you're going to pay for it at the end when you came up with some great look and you didn't talk to anybody about it and nobody liked the look. So it happens. It's happened to me. You just got to do it. Get out there and talk to people. Be a good salesperson. Be friendly. Be a good bartender. That's the deal. And then what do you want back from the editor? What's your editor want back from color? That's the question. Where's this project going to live? Is it just going to be on YouTube? Is it just going to be, on the web somewhere? Is this going to broadcast? Is it, Fox just started broadcasting in 1080. It's been 720 for a long time. They just upped it. So, that's 8-bit. We deliver 8-bit 720. So things are changing, but that's the reality of it. So, and then make sure you just call and ask lots of questions. That's what you got to do. It's just part of the gig. You got to communicate, and communication's where the job fails. That's what fails. If you don't communicate, it just won't, things won't happen. So just get out there, ask lots of questions, and, be friendly, and you're going to do good. You're going to do all right. Everything will work out. So let's move on to the next thing. Let's get started and bring a file in. Is there any questions on Diego or Max? Is there anything I missed or anything I should chat about? What do you think?
All good, all good.
I'm excited. To see what's going on.
I hope I'm not talking too fast, but again, I want to remind you guys, this is like kind of a backup plan, unless you work it out with the production company you're working with, or editorial company, or whatever. And it's like the fastest way to do the job. It's just, if it's the way to do it, it's like, hey, this is how much money we have, and this is the time we got to get it out the door. Because often a colorist will get the job, color it, and then we'll give the job back, the files back, and relinking everything. If there's a lot of stuff and there's already problems, or we're worried about something in the future with stock footage or stuff that's just kind of gathered together, a lot of times it's stock footage, there can be a lot of issues. And
sorry, Johnny,
works pretty well.
Sorry to interrupt. Dustin just said, could you please rewind to 5th slide? I think after that.
Oh shoot,
Exactly. Yeah.
I copied the same one. Sorry about
Okay.
that. Yes, that one is the same one. Sorry about that. I'm new at this. I'm getting better though.
No worries.
Okay, yeah.
Catching me though. I appreciate it. I tried to go through it quick. All right. So hey, how about we take a look at how, now this is a simple thing that we're going to do next. This is bringing the file in, and this is geared towards beginners. This is, keep everything as simple as you can. I like to just basically, I've got a client, and if I've got a client that I work with year in and year out, maybe I'll have the year first, then client, and then to color and from color, or the client and the job, to color, from color. Keep it simple. Whatever workflow you decide to do, try and do the same thing over and over and over, because you'll start working fast, you'll start stacking up jobs, and you'll be like, oh boy, where's that stuff at? So you gotta just try and keep your workflow the same if you can, organizationally, and if you find a better way, go for it. Change it up. We do it all the time as colorists. I change my workflow up a lot, but the basic stuff, again, think of it as a frame of a car. That's got to be straight for the car to drive straight. So think of it that way. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the media page here, and I've already set up a few things here. Let me, let's see, file. Let's hide this guy real quick. DaVinci Resolve. I'll go get this guy. Okay, you guys can see this? Yeah. Get rid of that. This is the basic stuff here. You've got your drive, your root, wherever it is. I've got a Maxon here that created for this. I've got a from color and to color. To color, that's where you're going to put your file. Simple enough. This came from the editor, and it's got an EDL in there. That's all I've got in there. Now, if you've got other file things that you get, maybe you've got alt files, all the other folders, organize it well. Just do your best to organize things, and just organize. Just be, because you got to be, once you get a lot of files going, it's like, uh-oh, where are those guys at? So you might have references under here, you might have other things. Right now, we're going to keep it simple, to color. And then from color, I like to put a file for my DRP, just DaVinci Resolve project. I'm going to show you how to save one of those. Just make sure it's, we're always on auto save, but save a DRP once in a while, because, power goes out, things happen. Just remember, be ready, be prepared, things happen. And
yeah.
And when you're just 100 miles an hour going fast, and man, this is the best color session I've ever had, and then something happens, you're like, really, this happened?
Yes.
You're just, you can't believe, yeah, it's happened to everybody. It's going to happen to you too, so be prepared.
Back up.
All right, back to color. So what we've got, we made that file. Now up here, we're on our, let me close that out, and you're right, Max, stay hydrated.
Yeah.
What you want to do, so next we're going to be on our media page down here in Resolve, and you've already got your project open. And for you guys, because this is new, and Diego's going to talk about it a little bit later, but I would just run it on, here's where we'll be here. Just stay here, your color science, you can keep this simple up here. Just keep it simple, and you can investigate that later. But for this session, we'll do that. And then on the next one, when Diego gets into that, that'll be some cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back to the media page. And what we're looking for up here, go to the root where you found it on media page here again. And we're going to drop down, Maxon, click on that. Now to color, I'm just going to grab that folder that I made. I'm going to stick it into master. And there's my file. So remember, if you prep things, you can bring them in. You're prepped, you're quick, moving around. Things can change, of course. You can add other bins, but this is how I kind of like to start. And then you've got your file. Here's our video. Now, what we want to do is take a look at it here in the viewer. We've got, looks like we've got some audio. Hey, remember how I like to ask for things not to have fade ups and fade outs? Oh, there's a fade up. That's okay. Oh, there's a crossfade in here. Okay, we'll figure that out. Now, the reason you want to watch this first before you load it all up and bring in your EDL. This is really important. And take a look at it inside Resolve, or you can even look at it in QuickTime on your computer if you want to do that on outside of Resolve. Take a look at it and just get a feel for it to see if there's any mistakes, and then bring it into Resolve. And this is just kind of a cross check, you know. I like to check it here. Usually nothing's going to happen when you bring it into this viewer. And I just play through, and I'm just kind of scrubbing, looking for trouble. You know, we could play the whole thing. Oh, we've got a fade to white out here at the back. All right, and we've got some titles. So I'm like, oh, okay. So, and this is going to happen. You're going to get this from clients sometimes, and listen, God bless them. They're balls to the wall too. I'm sorry, didn't mean to go there, but they are working hard to get things out the door, and they don't always have time to get everything to you perfectly. And you just gotta work, again, be a good bartender. Okay, what can I do as a colorist to appease that? And you may not get it perfectly without the fades up and, you know, without a dissolve, but you try to get it. And you can ask your editor, hey, can you get this without that? Ask for separate clips. And if you can't get them, I'll show you how to work with them later. But it's okay. It's okay. You know, remember, we're doing our best, and we're in the service industry, and there's ups and downs, and it's our job to help figure things out. So the next thing you do, we've brought that down. We've got our video in the gray area here. You're going to right click, and timelines is going to pop up. Your timeline drop down. So again, right click, timelines, import, pre-conformed EDL. So here we go. Again, it's just timelines, import, pre-conformed EDL. Click on that guy, and then you're going to find out where is that. Oh, hey. Okay, go. Oh, sorry guys, that's my son Jackson. Go find
Hi,
out.
Maxon.
Go find out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. He
Oh,
just came to say hi.
Yeah, working from home, man. I mean,
Yeah, he just came to say hi. Yeah.
a buddy
awesome,
color,
yeah.
you know, he's working his way up.
Yeah.
I've got him doing he's just doing transcodes right now, but after that, it's, you know, we're moving forward. I'll get him on, just using one node at a time right now. I'll get a node tree going for him soon though, but okay, so let me back up let's go back to where I was. Again, we've got our file in here, timelines, right click, import, pre-conformed EDL. Click on that, and then go to where the files, I have it set up already to go to where I need it to go, but you would go where your root drive is, go find it. We've got a EDL here. We're going to hit open. All right, then you're going to hit OK. And then here's a quick one here, folders. This is emulating, this is basically a copy of your timeline over here. See this over here, master to color, master to color. Click on master and then click on to color. Now the reason you want to do this is that right now we only have one folder in here, but if we had a string of folders, it would start looking for files in there. And the way Resolve works, it kind of goes to places of the least resistance, you know, so it might bring in some other clips that have the same time codes or a similar name, or usually it won't, but to avoid that, go ahead and just click to color, hit OK, and then all of a sudden we've got in our timelines, Raytong locked, double click on that. It's going to take us to the edit page. And then there we go. There is our EDL. Now we want to just kind of cruise through it a little bit here and see if you can cut these out. Let's make it big.
So, Johnny, I have a question.
Sure.
Do this EDL is just a normal EDL that the editor goes in Premiere and say file, export EDL, and that's it?
It is a basic EDL. It's very simple, and you want to make it as simple as you can. Now, they used to be called CMX 3600s. Now, you may be familiar with that. The new, as Tony pointed out to me, he's like, well, hey, a lot of the new gear doesn't say CMX 3600, and he's correct, you know, but what you want to do is in Premiere, I know there's a lot of extra buttons, declick a lot of those extra buttons and try and scale it down to be as clean as possible, you know. So we're going to take out as clean as you can make it, and same goes for Avid. If you're making it in Avid, just try to make that as clean as you can. And I try to tell editors, if you have a chance, try to import it into the free version of Resolve. That doesn't always go over well because not everybody knows all these systems, but once in a while, an editor or she'll have an assistant editor or an online person that can kind of check it real quick and see if it all falls into place, you know. But that's a great question, because creating EDLs from different softwares, could be different. There could be different ways to do it. And if you get it and it's really way off, what I learned just in the past couple of years is that, you know, having multicam turned on within the sequence, that causes a lot of problems. That'll cause a bunch of extra cuts within this clip here. And you'll have to, you know, on a 60-second piece or 30-second piece, it's okay, you know, and I'm going to show you how to take care of business here if an EDL doesn't work properly. But on an hour-long show, you know, that's a lot of work. You really want to get something from somebody that cuts up the project, you know, and then, you know, be it your XML, AAF, or, you know, your backup plan here with your pre-conformed workflow. So, but, you know, a short piece, yes, you can, you know, you can cut it up pretty quick, but a long piece, you know, because what we got to do, we got to check every one of these edits. I'm gonna show you a quick way to check these edits, make sure they're cool. But once you get going here, once you got your EDL in, go ahead and lock these up real quick. That's what I like to do. And I will go up to 2-color, and I'm gonna bring this file right back in here. You know, this is basically just, I'm gonna bring it in here and just kind of check out what's going on, you know. Just turn it off and on, just go to each, use your arrows. You can turn the file off and on and just kind of find out, are cuts where they should be? You know, once in a while, you'll get a cut and maybe black is added in, or maybe for whatever reason, you know, there's just countless reasons something could come up and be wrong, but go through, check it out, see if it's like, all right, is this guy working? Is it pretty quick? You know, I do this way. This is just my workflow. You certainly could stick it in as a offline reference as well to see if that
so basically on that, you save the time when you are like applying sync code detection and so on, because it's already everything cut.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so great.
And I know this is just, and the big caveat with this again is that we are working from ProRes 444 or equivalent. You know, we're not working from the original camera files. But the nice thing about that ProRes 444 is that, you know, it's a 12-bit file, so it can bring across a lot of that depth, a lot of that color range that is in the original raw files. Okay, so that's, I know that in a lot, you know, DPs are going to say, wait, I shot 8K. That can't be. You can't do it this way. You know, well, we got to do it.
Just say it. I mean, in so many cases, we are always like, take the original, take the original. But I mean, a ProRes 444 XQ is giving a closest, really close result.
It gives you a lot. Yes, thank you, Diego. It gives you a lot of room down there in the blacks and the highlights.
Yeah.
You have a lot to work with. And so, now, some editors are going to say, well, let me give you a ProRes HQ or ProRes, just a ProRes. And back in the day, those were okay. But now we've got more depth. Go for that 444. Even if the project was, they're like, why didn't none of the footage is in none of it's, you know, in in 444, nothing's raw. This is all original. These are just clips from wherever. Just press for the bigger file. Just try to get that. Just say, hey, it makes my job easier, and I can give you a better result. Just try to make that workflow as it is. And sometimes they might give you an HQ, and that's what you got, you know. But anything below, you may not know this, but ProRes HQ and below that is the Rec 709 format. So that has it baked in. You know, maybe, and when I say that doesn't mean you can't lay off a log a look on a Rec 709, you know, an HQ, but it doesn't have the bit depth. It's 10 bits, which is a lot bigger than 8-bit, of course, but jump up to 12-bit and you've got quite a bit more with a 444 file. So, you know, these bigger files will help you get around quantization issues. And what I mentioned, you know, like say a sky in 8-bit, you're going to have like stepping in that sky, or maybe just a simple white wall that's got shading. All of a sudden in 8-bit, you've got stepping. If you can avoid that in any way possible, ask your editor to always work with the biggest files that person can and hand you off, you know, the best files that you can, and or 444 if you go with the pre-conformed workflow. Okay, so any thoughts about that? Any questions on that part?
All good, Jonny.
All right. After you've checked your file here, it looks like it's okay. Let's go ahead and get rid of it. So we're just going to get rid of that guy. And I like to just kind of keep things neat and crisp, like my lettuce, and make sure everything's cool. So that is it. That's bringing in, that's how quick and easy it can be. It can be right there. That's bring it in. We've checked it. We're like, all right, good. And now it's, it's time to color. So we would start coloring. We're like, all right, this is great. Nice job, editor. We sure appreciate it, your hard work and efforts. And we get a rock and roll and start doing what we like doing. Okay.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I don't use this workflow because I didn't know it. So what I was doing, I was asking the full timeline, and then I was applying the scene cut. But you spend time. You spend a lot of time doing the scene cut and so on. But here, as you say, I mean, you just check it, and that's great. This is
you're in to go, and it's might once in a while there might be something you have to fix or adjust, but this one came in pretty clean. This is good. And what could come in. Now notice here, I just want to show you.
Jonny, sorry to interrupt, but I
sure.
think there's a great questions coming from Greg. Greg is asking if ProRes 444 is not an option. What do you recommend?
Go try and find a 444. What is HDNX file? Something large. There'll be one that says Avid. Or if you're on
220 SQ, something like that. I think
220 up there is going to be something very comparable to that, and you can get those files. That's fantastic, because your PC isn't going to make your QuickTime files, of course, so try and get one that's got that depth in it, that's comparable. And you could probably do a quick online search, but the 220 is going to have the nice bigger file that'll allow you to have that 12-bit depth that'll let you reach into the blacks and get some information out of those highlights, so that's what we want. And again, you should always try and get it as a log file. You want to make sure, if you get the file and you're like, it does, there's original, there should be original camera files, like red stuff and Arri or whatever, and at Sony, and it should be flat, desaturated, looking like log is, and all of a sudden it looks like it has a look on it. Tell your editor, say, hey man, let's get a look on it. I think log was or rec 709 was left on or something was turned on, and they'll turn it off and bring you out a new copy. Simple as that. No big deal. We're all just trying to get through it, and this is a workflow that sometimes a colorist gets to be the hero when you bring this plan B, because it's like, oh boy, nothing's matching. What are we going to do? Some file names have been changed, and we're like, uh-oh. And you're like, hey, I got an idea. What if we tried this? Times one, you'll be the hero. It's cool. So it'll help. It'll and remember, these don't have handles on them though, because again, this is a lock cut. So if there's a new piece that needs to be added, you can add that to the tail. You can get an alt cut or an alt clip from the editor. It could be the original file. It could be, or you can just burn out another 444 with handles on it. And that's the big difference from if you're not working on an XML or AAF. I'm not returning a piece with handles, it's cut. This is locked, but usually on the other cut, especially on commercials, you'll have handles of 24 frames or something like that to allow the piece to continue to change until it gets broadcast. Okay, so now the next question is, what if this thing doesn't work? We're like, man, this thing is not working at all. I do not know. I don't have time. Me and the editor trying to get this to work, but maybe the editor's on another job and just things come up. You just can't get it done. So, all right, here we go. Let's go backwards. We're going to kind of start over. Let's go back to media. And what I'm going to do just real quick is I'm going to take out our, I'm going to get rid of our timeline. Delete. I'll get rid of the wrong one. It's my first day. I'm learning.
Great.
All right. Okay, so now we've got in our 2-color folder, what we need to do now is we're going to create a new timeline. Now, this is something that we do. Now, the EDL didn't work. Get rid of the EDL or anything that had to do with it first. Just get rid of that stuff like I just did. You'll find that in timelines. Get rid of the timeline. You can keep the file, though, because that's the same file we're going to work with, right? So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the edit page, and we're going to go up here to file, and we're going to say new timeline. Now, before we do that, I want to go back to media page, and I want you to take note of what the start time code is here. Down here, it starts at hour 1. Remember that. whenever you get started and create a new timeline that you're going to create physically by you're creating it, make sure you note that, because you don't want to start this at 0. You know, if it does start at 0, great. But if it starts at hour 1, start it at hour 1. So, and make sure. And then if you get files that might be alt files, you may want to start those at a time code similar, but we could get into that later. Back to the edit page, we're going to create a new timeline. Up here at File, we're going to go New Timeline, and then it automatically starts at hour 1, which is great. That's what we want. But here you could change it to whatever you need to do. A lot of times projects might start at, you know, 58 or 5950, things like that, or might start at 0. Timeline name, we're just going to call this. We're going to call this one Timeline Scene Cutter. All right, Timeline Scene Cutter. This empty timeline, this is fine. You know, you've got a little audio, but you can just leave it as it comes in. Simple enough. And create, and it's going to be empty. And then the next thing we're going to do is go up to color, bring our file in. This is the important part. Drop it on here, kind of drop it in there. And then here's what I want you to do next. Hit plus, zoom in, and make sure, here's what can happen. You might drop this guy in here, and it, zoom out a little bit, it might be off by a frame because you're working fast. And even if you had the magnet turned off, maybe it was like that. And then what if we zoom out? Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, it looks like it starts at 1. Looks pretty good. But in reality, we zoom in and we're like, uh-oh, we are off a little bit. So double, triple check that. Make sure you do that. Because if you don't, that'll, you know, it'll just call it. You can always move it later, but you know, you want to be, you know, my old shop teacher in high school used to say perfection is our goal. You know, because in engines, you're working in micrometers, and oftentimes in post-production, you know, this is it. We're here, man. We're the last line of defense. We got to make this thing come together right. And if you set this project up correctly the first time in the beginning, ask lots of questions, do the little things, you're not going to have problems in the end that could bite you. And same thing here. What we're going to do is I like to put a lock on there after I get done. You know, everybody's got their things they like to do. But that's what I like to do. I think that's something good. And then what we're going to do next is that this is new for Resolve 17, is that they've got this timeline scene cutter. This thing's pretty cool. It works on, I think they call it a neural engine. I may be incorrect on that, Diego, but
yeah, I think
that one.
exactly.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It does good things. Now, what is cool? Now this is, we're going to go up to timeline, and then we're going to go to detect scene cuts. So here we go. Up the timeline again. Detect scene cuts right here. And I may be incorrect on the lock. Let's check. I might be. Let's see if it does it with the lock turned on. I could be incorrect. All right, it didn't do it. So here, unlock. Don't lock this first. Yeah. Sorry about that, rookie. Detect scene cuts. And now it's going to start going through, chopping this guy up, and it does it pretty fast. You know,
I think what I read in the somewhere in the forum is that the media page time, how do you call it, scene cut detector, it works by, you know, analyzing the contrast in the image, right? But this one, yeah, and it was great. And this one is working by how do you call it? It was supported by the DaVinci neural engine.
And when Tony introduced me to this, Tony Berry, and yeah, we were working on a project recently together, and he's like, oh man, he's like, you know, Tony's like, oh man, try this out, it's gonna blow your mind. I'm like, oh, and it did, mind blown right here, just, you know. But here's the cool thing here. After it does this, go ahead and put the locks on now, because I get worried about messing stuff up. Go ahead and check this out where this dissolve from black is. Now look at that, it didn't leave any marks there, did it? Just remember that when we go on, I'm going to show you the old school scene cutter from the media page next. But just take a look at what that did. It didn't add any extra marks, which is pretty cool. Now we've got our marks here. We're feeling good. We've got another dissolve, like a cross, nothing there, no extra marks. That's great. Now just think about that. If you're doing a big, large project, say that's an hour long, and it starts putting in 20 marks in between there and you're like, oh man, so you got to remove those marks. You know, we got to QC this guy. So we're QCing this. Just kind of take note at how long this takes me to kind of look through these cuts and make sure that it's landing where it should, you know. Yeah, that's great. Now I've had some good luck with this. It doesn't seem to add extra black or anything. I've been pretty stoked on this. Good job. Kudos to Resolve for doing a nice job. Now look at this scene right here. This scene is very similar, and I think on the next project, the next scene color that we look at, it just might not add that mark in there. So that's what we need. We want to say, okay, this thing's pretty solid, you know. So it's adding marks. This is great, you know, doing its job and saving us a bunch of time as colors. You know, did it take me a minute to get through that? Maybe something like that, to just kind of double, triple check it. And that's it. That's where we're at. So I'm pretty stoked about how this guy works. Anybody have any questions about this before I move on to the classic scene cutter, I'll call it, that we will use from the media page?
So I don't know if we say, but this one is just studio only. It's not in the free one.
It's only, okay.
The timeline scene cut.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shame on me for not knowing the research on that one. I'm so sorry about that. I know a lot of you guys, beginning colors are out there with the free version, and the free version is fantastic, and it does most of the stuff. So that is that page. So now let's go to the media page, and what we're going to do is let's get rid of what we just did there. We'll go ahead and get rid of that guy. How am I doing on time? I'm doing okay?
You're doing fine, Jonny.
Okay. What we're going to do now is we are going to take this out of here. What we can do is I'm going to take 2 color out. We're going to delete this bin. Or actually, we could just add a quick bin here, new bin, and we'll call it, I'm going to call it classic scene cutter, or we'll call it media page scene cutter. Okay. Now what we're going to do here, this is what's the big difference here. Go up here to color, we're going to click on it on your file, and then right click on the file. So if I click in the gray, nothing happens. Right click, so I'm right clicking on the file, scene cut detection. And you want to make sure before you do that, that you're clicked on your media page scene cutter. I like to keep things organized. So make a specific folder for this, because we're going to cut this guy up. There's going to be 60 clips in here, you know. So right click again, make sure that's chosen. You can always move your files in there, but you know, make sure it's good to go right now. And then scene cut detection, click that guy, and we're going to auto scene detect. And as Max and Diego were saying, it is, you know, it does create the cuts, you know, it looks for contrast, and it's very effective. This is fantastic. Now think about how I've spent about a minute looking at getting through the other file, you know, that's a little bit faster than this one, but this one is still pretty solid. But see what it does here at the head on our dissolves. It adds a mark every time. It's got basically every frame that it changes contrast, we've got an extra mark there. Now let me go through a couple of things on here before I start chopping this thing up. Let's look around. Every green line is a solid mark. And then the middle frame here, that's the cut. Okay, there's the first cut, second cut. That's gonna, you know, always gotta have a different cut in the middle, and that's when you know that you're on the cut. If you need to say delete it or add a cut. And then let's take a look here. Whoop, oh, there's that dissolve. It does find it. So this is what kind of can slow you down with scene cutter. But again, nothing wrong with that. What we can do here with this pink line, I think it's called the purge line. We can get rid of some of this stuff. You know, so if we wanted all this, there, let me move this over so I can see it. You can see over here on your right-hand side here, these are all your cuts. These are all the clips here. It's going to make separate clips. It says we've got 77. Well, Let's move it up here. Oh, now let's see how many we got. We've got 41. So that's nice not to work with that. Going to the end here, let's kind of keep looking. We've got a cut here that's a little low, but let's see. Oh, remember that cut I was talking about? This one, noticed it, but it wasn't a big change, you know, because those cuts came out of the same camera, probably the same shot there. So again, what we're going to do here is to add a cut. So we click on add, and now you can confirm that the green line has reached the purge. You know, purge it as much as you can to get rid of unwanted stuff, and then we'll have to go back and delete some things as well, you know. But what you want to do is kind of go through each cut and just kind of make sure, use your arrows, see if it's working. All right. And this can get tedious, but you know what? This is what we got to do sometimes, man. It's just, it's part of the drill, and it's cool that we're able to do this. You know, here's another couple cuts here that are not quite there. We add a cut. It's going to give us a green line, and it's going to add another clip down here. You know, so you can kind of confirm, okay, it's adding clips. Get back on there. Another one we're going to add. And then slowly go through, and then we're like, oh, what do we got here? What I do here at the end, I usually just leave this. I'll let it go. I won't put an extra cut in there because I'm going to handle this in my timeline. I'm going to handle this later, and I'll show you real quick how to do this if I've got time at the end to knock it out. And then you just got to cut to black there. And once in a while, this cut to black can cause problems. I'm going to leave it in, and we'll see what it does. But it might add some time. So let's see what it does. And this might be, I'll be able to show you what to do with that if it causes a problem. And then you want to make sure you go through, again, if you've got clips here that are blending together, that are dissolving together, just leave them. Take all the cuts out. We're going to deal with these in the timeline. We just want to go through, make sure there's nothing in between, you know, here. And then here we've got, so what we'll hit here is delete, delete, delete. You can always add more. So I usually delete till it goes to the next cut, and then I'll take it back, you know, and then find it. Get that whole dissolve out of there, find the end. That's great. Okay, we're good to go. And now the next thing you want to do is add cuts to the media pool. All right, right here. There are some drop downs and some other things that you can do here. And honestly, I haven't used a lot of those. I'm a colorist that I do work fast and kind of try to get from A to B. You know, you can make some, looks like they even give you a chance to make EDLs and things from here. That may be something to kind of play around with and try out. You know, at this point, I'm not editing, I'm coloring. So this might be something an editor might be able to use to create EDL from this or something down the road. But there are other options of creating EDLs from the timeline. But again, this thing's still a pretty good tool. Add cuts to the media pool. And then you see something happen beneath here, but wait a minute, nothing else happened. What's going on? There's a tiny little X up here. See this little X? Don't forget, you go get that guy. I had to find it the first time. Like, well, what's going on here? You know, so there's the tiny X. Click that guy. Now take a look what's in your media page folder bin. All those clips are in here. Now this is kind of cool too, the way it can cut everything up, because maybe this is a cool option to have all these clips as well to do other things with, you know. So this is kind of an interesting thing you might be able to get creative with using in another way, but it dumps them all in here. Now, next, what we got to do, we're like, okay, great, we've got all these. Let's go ahead and we're going to create a, go to the edit page, got to create a new timeline. How do we do that? File, new timeline. Let's just call it media page. Okay, clips. And then we're going to create this guy. Here we go. Create. Again, we started add one. And now what we're going to do is go to our media page. Click in here and then just kind of do Command A, or if you got a PC, use what you got to do. Select them all. Bring them down here again. And then triple check. Make sure, what do we got in here? Is this Is it starting? Is it indeed starting at hour 1? Yes, it is. Okay, that's great. Now we're going to go through and just see, hey, are all our cuts in here? All right. Looks like most of them are in here. Did anything get added? What I still like to do, because sometimes the scene cutter can add, once in a while, it might add something to the black. Here it didn't. Once in a while, if you've got a little bit of black, or maybe you've got a, I don't know, a black clip at the head or at the tail, sometimes it'll look at that as if it's a still frame and add 10, might make it 10 seconds or 5 seconds. And it just, I don't know if it's a bug or not, but once in a while it comes up. So if it does come up, remember, no big deal. Hey man, that's cool. We'll just go up to media, and you can certainly create a new bin and say, okay, we'll just call this one ref, even though it's not the ref, but we can bring in this guy and say, you're like, man, what if I had a problem and I had to replace that black or do something, maybe a frame, something just wasn't right. What you can do is bring down this guy and quickly chop out what you need and drop it down into this new timeline. Say this black gave us some trouble and it was 10 seconds long. Well, okay, that's a bummer, but let's move things over, adjust and change the timeline as needed, and then we could certainly clip, we could cut out what we need from here. Maybe I need this part, and I could move this guy, and dump it down, drop it down. But for the most part, I've been pretty happy with Scene Cutter. And then when Tony brought it to my attention that the Timeline Cutter was there, I'm like, holy cow, this is great. Okay. Max, how am I doing? Do I have time to show a little bit about cross dissolves, or how am I doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay, guys, I got a little bit more here to show you. Now, what happens when you have one of these cross dissolves? Well, okay. It's not always awesome to have them, but it's okay, So let's go to our color page. And what we want to do is we're going to use up here at the very top. I've got it already. Keyframes is already turned on, but keyframes, something else could be on down here too, like information or our scopes, which are extremely important. But what we'll see here is our keyframes. Now, what we want to do with the dissolve, they're not our enemies, but they're also, when I color something, I'm going to put a little bit of an extreme color that are going to affect the blacks because we start at black. Let's just say I take, here, I'll do it over here, take our blacks, and we're going to take them towards blue there. Okay, great. This is we're going with the cross-process look here. This is our look for today. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. Here's our fade now, which doesn't completely go to black, but it certainly shouldn't go to blue, should it? We don't want that, So what we want to do is, like when we don't get a dissolve in there, we just color it and hand it back to the editor, and then the editor applies his or her dissolves to, fade ups from black or fade to blacks, and they're laying black over it, so it goes to black. But with us, it's like, well, we got to cheat it now. We got to have it cheat. So what we do here, we're going to go ahead and we need to find, where does this dissolve start? Of course, it starts right here. And so what we want to do is put add a static frame. Let's get this out. And then we want to find where the dissolve ends. Looks like it ends there. Go ahead and oh, I'm sorry. Shoot. Again, I'm a bit of a rookie here. What we are doing. So we're going to start with a dynamic keyframe and end with a static. Okay, static means stop. So just think of static as your stop sign. Add static. And now let's go back to the head of this guy. And we're going to go down to the color and simply get rid of it. Now, as we scrub through, our color's still there, but our black is black.
And it kicks in on the second keyframe, right?
Yeah, it kicks in. So it starts kicking in where it should here,
Yes.
instead of going to our cross-process, you know, heavy blue, black. We don't want that. So that's the trick of it. You got to find the start of your dissolve and the end of the dissolve, and then start with whatever color it is and then end with whatever color it is. Now, what if you've got a cross dissolve? Well, let's see. I think I've got one here. Let's take a look. We start with her face, and what we're going to do is find, and you can find these first, you know, either set, basically we got to split this clip up. So we're going to mark where that starts. We're going to add our dynamic and then find out where does this end.
There.
Right there. This is where the new color will be. Add static. All right. Now here, I'm going to just make sure we see something that will go with our cross-process look, because it's something that we can see pretty good, you know. And then we'll go to our next scene, and let's see, maybe this scene, I don't know why, but it's you know, it's incredibly yellow. What? Just to see what happens there. We can still work with it, you know. So basically, I wouldn't go so heavy on our looks, but to give you an idea, that is what you can do. Or maybe it's just a nice look that. Just maybe a little more naturalistic. And then there we go. You know, into that you can work with it. Now, if you come across something like, say you've got to create a key on her, or you've got to create a key in the sky, you've got a clip behind it that doesn't need that kind of stuff, that gets a little tough. Now, you can still figure it out. Believe me, a lot of times I'm working on, you know, I'll bring in you know, my bring in my base setup that's got my everything in it that I like to use commonly, you know, it's just my template, you know, but a lot of times I do get into doing secondaries and things in the, you know, the sky, you know, whatnot. And then say I've got to go to some kind of stock footage from World War I or II, like, oh geez, you know, and that's really hard to do a cross dissolve work with handle and color. So this is an instant, if you have that, say you talk to your editor and say, hey, I'm going to need an original clip, you know, I need the shot of the girl, you know, her face, and because going into that next clip, if it's a heavy color look, it can be tough, or it's just you're going into a clip that's you know, day and night from the clip that you're working with. You can get it there, but it's, you know, it's nice to get that other clip clean, and you'll clean that clip separately, or your color that you'll grade that clip separately and just put it at the end of your project, or put it in a new folder when you give it back to the editor, and that editor will drop that in and then put the
Awesome.
cross dissolve in. But just always remember, oh, go ahead.
It is quite some process, right, Jonny, to just get your timeline to get into the color page.
Oh, it's a lot of work, you know. It takes a little bit of time. Yeah, man.
And before we go into Diego, because Diego also would like to explain the color management, on the color management side, there's a question from Dustin. Could you please repeat and explain what is the difference between dynamic and static keyframe?
Oh, I sure can. Hey, Dustin, thanks for joining us today, and hey, thanks for all the questions, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. That's great. And thanks for everybody for tuning in and watching us and putting up with my mistakes. But you know, little by little, you get better and better at it. You know, and so dynamic allows you to blend. It allows it's where you start. The dynamic is the starting of the dissolve of your color to dissolve into another color. Basically, the dynamic starts the transition and static ends the transition. Now, I could put another static right here if I wanted. Check this out. If I did a static here, get rid of my here. Just get rid of all this stuff. There we go. There we go. Let's start with this. Is a lot simpler. So if you put a static, basically you could color it right, and then here it would be. Oh, I didn't click on color. Whoops, I'm sorry. That's static. All right. Okay, sorry about that. If you wanted to add a static and then say basically, why would you use static maybe as opposed to using dynamic even, you know, why would you do that? Well, here's a reason you might. Say you've got an, say the exposure bumps. You get an exposure bump and it happens, you know, there's something that just goes bump, 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 you know, I'll just, you know, maybe it comes in like that. And then your next one, it comes in, it's a little different, you know.
So if you have an abrupt change, for example, right?
So say you got this footage and it came to you and it was all crazy like that. This is where you might need to use static to kind of, you got to go bump, bump, bump and change it so it works, you know, and it can be extremely tedious, but sometimes that's the only option, you know, to do it. There's also another option to do this kind of stuff, and you would do this in, oh, I'd have to, well, I'm not going to go into it, but that's for another class. But this will allow you to do that. Now, if you wanted to, again, stabilize, what you can also do, which is kind of cool. Oops, let's go here. Let's go down here a little further. Not stabilize, but dynamic. You could go, let's start this one there. You can also consecutively add dynamic if you want to. And what this could be kind of good for, and like say we went like that, if you've ever worked on car footage driving through woods, Diego, I hear you back there laughing because you've done it, or Max, but if you've dealt with a car driving through the woods, with spackled light, it comes up and it goes down, it's just, and it's rhythmic like music, and it's beautiful. But sometimes it goes down too far and you've got to ride the bottom and the blacks up, or the highlights, you gotta arrest them somehow and make it work. This is a great thing to use for that. You know, like it's just like waves on the ocean flowing. Like this is how you can do it now. So this doesn't necessarily, it ends here. Yes, it does end there and it's not static, but it's, you know, this is a way to kind of keep it going. But if you just want something to start somewhere and end, you start with
so probably the best analogy, it's like the light switch, right? The static is like on and off, and dynamic is like the, how do you call it, the dimmer? That's the word, right?
It's a good way to look at it. And you can, you know, experiment with them a little bit and see what works and what doesn't. You know, I've created with this thing's pretty cool here. I work on a show called People Magazine Investigates. I think we're going to be on the 6th season this year. It's a cool show, you know, on Discovery, and once in a while we gotta add some bullet blasts. You know, we don't have the effect to do it, and I'll create them in Resolve. You know, the flashes that come out of the gun, and I'll just create them in Resolve, and I'll use this to help myself create these things. You know, so it's just, you know, when they pull that gun, maybe for whatever reason they weren't able to have not live rounds, but live blanks, you know, on set. And so we'll create them, and I'll be able to create a flash that happens over the screen overall. And coming out of that pistol, you've got a little bit of fire, and you just dance it around a little bit, and you can use these tools to make it look really realistic. So by using a little bit of dynamic, that, you know, the flash comes, but then it kind of goes back down, but then there's a flash point near the tip of that gun that comes out hard, you know, then you're going to use static, and you're going to create something with some blurs and whatever, a little bit of magic, some kind of recipe, and there's a flux capacitor added in there somewhere, and it goes up to 11. I don't know, but you do it. But I use tools for that, and you get creative with them. And, you know, you can, especially for some of you beginner colorists out there, you know, use some tools in ways that you might not always use them, and see if they do something cool. There's the assignment.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jonny, for sharing this workflow with us. And another, just a reminder, guys, for the audience, you can follow along with what Jonny is doing because this session is recorded. You can re-watch it in YouTube and download the file that Jonny kindly shared with us and follow along with us to reinforce the learning. So thank you so much, Jonny, for sparing some time with us and to explain us this pre-conformed workflow. Of course, we learned a lot of things today. And next, we will go into color management. And Diego has some bag of tricks that he wants to share with you about color management, how to understand color management, because these things can save your time, right, Diego? Or
yeah, definitely. So can I?
Oh, I'll
you
make
allow
you a
me to share the
presenter.
screen?
Sorry.
All right, good.
I'll make you a presenter. I'm sorry for that.
Don't worry.
There you go. You should be able to
my
share a screen now.
There you go. Did you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so color management. now it's funny because last day I was reading an article and it was saying that like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, color management was such a, I don't know, a thing that no one's wanted to know and so on. But nowadays it's like a must topic that everyone needs to know about it. So it's interesting. So let's just showcase a really like big scenario. Is that this is our actual world. We have many cameras and the people recording many cameras, and our products have many cameras in. So what we usually do is that we start grading all of the cameras as a colorist, but the problem is that we forgot that these cameras have a science in, so it doesn't matter. We grade them, we put them all into the grading system, and we fight between each other and so on. So that's our workflow. Our workflow is that no matter which camera is, all of them for us is the same, and we grade. Okay. So one of the main problems about this is that it's not a problem. If you think it, okay, it can be a problem. So one of the first things that we do is we join them, all of them, into a Rec 709 screen. Yes, we join all of these cameras into a Rec 709 screen. And then after grading them, what we do is we move these cameras into a look. So in some way, probably we didn't grade this. In some way, what we did, it was that we move all of these cameras into a display, and then we start grading. So what is one of the main, let's think, the workflow or the problem that we are having here? The problem that we are having here is the following. Let me come here to this one here. The problem is that you're thinking, okay, that's what we do. But in the world we have 30 stops, we have a wide gamut. The cameras are getting better every day. But we finish here. Actually, we didn't finish here. We start here because we moved from here to 6 stops for X709. That is a really small like group of colors instead of what we have, and then we grade. So this means that in some way our workflow is this one. Yes. First, we have one problem. We move all of these cameras into a common language. And let's think that this is, I know, this is English, this is Spanish, this is Portuguese, this is Bulgarian, Hungarian. And as a colorist, we join all of them into one. So it's a big problem. But the second problem is that when we fit all of them into a screen, the main problem is that we join them or we put them into, as we say here, let me move here, we put all of them into one screen. But the times when we were delivering just for one screen are in the past. Now we have to deliver to HDR, to P3, to many screens. So the problem of grading just thinking in one screen, as we say, thinking in grading in a display refer workflow, is that when we have to think in another or think in the future, we have to grade again all of them. we have to grade again all of them. So it's a big problem. Grading in the display is thinking just in one screen, is thinking in the present, but it's not thinking in the future. And also when we are grading in a display, in an uncolor managed workflow, we do this manually. We try to do this manually. We try to do color space conversion manually, but the color space conversion are in some way scientific. So we can use the science to use these conversions, and then we can do the science to use these conversions. So based on that, what in some way we want to do is we don't want to grade based on the display, because the display is going to allow us just to grade here. We want to grade based on the scene, because when we grade based on the scene, what we can do is we can take advantage of all the information from the capture or from the cameras, and then with that information, we can go to any screen we wanted. And also, when we grade them all in one scene, what we do is we take all of the specific attributes from all the different cameras and we join them into one attribute. So now we don't need to fight to match one camera, one color space to another, one camera color space to another. No, all of them are going to speak the same language. So that's a basic concept, and you are going to listen to this concept a lot. Grading based on the display or grading based on a scene. A scene gives you a lot more of flexibility, and it also is time saver for a colorist. And this is what we usually need to do. For example, I will show you here, just to finalize this explanation. This is grading in the scene. You grade with all of this information, and then you use the color science to map to any screen you need it. And grading in the display is you just grade with a few information and you are stuck in this old screen. So let's think that's the present. It's not the future, it's the present. We need to think in the future and we need to grade with all of the information. So based on that, the industry create different kind of workflow, and the Academy of I forgot the name. The Academy of Motion Pictures create one color framework that in some way wants to unify all of the sources, want to unify the different departments, and create ACES is Academy Color Encoding System, and is a color management framework that the main goal is to create color consistency in all stages. And as we say, it's a scene refer color workflow. So probably you're thinking, okay, we understand already that is display, that is just grading one display and all the information will be there, and scene will be graded with all of the information on the scene, and from there we can go to the place we want it. But how we can do this? The way we can do this is by creating what we call, here I have the, wait me. It's what we call in this part a working color space. So a working color space is a place where really big with a wide gamut, where I can go from that working color space to where I need it. So now let's think that here this graphic is so important. When we are grading based on the scene, we need to think in 2, 1, 2, that is the working color space, and 3 steps. So based on that, we are going to explain how ACES works. So one of the best things of ACES is that it's a color management framework that is interoperable, but the best thing is that it's free. So when it's free and when it's open source, is that it means that it can be implemented in any grading software, in any VFX, and if everything is ACES, everyone is going to speak the same language. This is absolutely so important. So now let's see how we can start working in ACES. That is, let's think that is the color management framework most common, most popular, and in some way most interoperable right now in the industry. So the first thing, as I told you, is that we need one step. We need to convert all of this into one place that we call the working color space. So if I go to DaVinci Resolve here I have an empty project, and then I go to File, Project Settings here, and then I go to Color Management. So we have two options. The first one is DaVinci YRGB. This means that what you see in the screen is what you are going to have. You can do what you want in DaVinci YRGB. You can recreate aces with Max. We show it in, I think, in one of the Demystifying sessions. He showed how we can create aces here. We can create many transformations, but if you are in some way, if you don't want to go so deep into that science and to that transformation, the easiest way to create a project and to enter into aces is to use ACCC or ACCCT. So we are going to explain a little bit later what is the difference between ACCC and ACCCT, but let's think that right now we are going into ACCCT. So as I told you, the most important part of a color scene workflow is that all of the cameras need to go into a working color space. We do that by applying a ACES input device transform. If I go here to my presentation, what we do at the beginning is this. We move all of what we have into ACES using what we call an IDT. So how we do that? The thing that we do here is we need to know some really specific things when working in color management. First is the recording gamut, also the display gamut where we are going, but in this case, when we are using or where we are applying an IDT, we need to know where the cameras or what is the camera that was used for recording. This means that I need to know the gamut and I need to go the transfer cube. This is so important. And we were talking about, Jonny was talking about scene detection, and probably one question can be, can I use scene detection to go into a color management like workflow? And if I go really purist, I will say no, because it will be a render. It will be a render that will not have any more the color space specific of the camera and the transfer cube. But we can do it. Why not? I mean, it will still have a little bit of that. So based on that, what we are going to do is we are going to enter to ACES, as we saw here. In the IDT, we select the camera color space and also the transfer cube. In Resolve, usually we call the gamut camera color space, and we give to the transfer cube the gamma. We give the name of the gamma. So here we can select the name of the camera we use it, and then it will enter. But where that footage is going to enter? We say here that is going to enter into ACES. But what is ACES? ACES has a color space that is AP0 linear. So what is the main advantage of that AP0 linear? So we talk about that the working color space needs to be a color space really, really big with all the information and with high dynamic range that would cover all of these cameras. And the color space of ACES, the first color space, is called the ACES AP0 with a transfer function linear. This is a wide gamut 32 dynamic range stops. Also, it has RGB primaries and has a wide point of D60. So when I do this, when I select, for example, let's select here Alexa. When I do this, all I'm doing is that I'm saying to the footage, okay, go inside ACES. So let me just select, in this case, no input transform, because if you have raw, you don't need to select anything. Resolve will know what is the transformation you need to do to import the footage or to convert the footage into ACES. So in this case, I will join, for example, this clip here. And what you will notice is that now I have the clip, but the clip looks so strange. the clip look really strange. It looks green, it looks different. But right now we can say that is in what we saw here is in AP0. But what is happening here in this part in AP0 is that, as you notice, is this color space is bigger than the colors that the human eye can see. It also has a different like position of RGBs, and also is linear. In grading, we usually grade with gamuts, smaller gamuts, and also we grade in log. So the controls and the behavior for a colorist is going to be in some way strange if we keep in AP0. So what is doing ACES inside ACES is that it's moving the AP0 to AP1. And that AP1 is going to have a transfer curve of logarithmic. So that will make that the colors inside the leaf gamma gain, or okay, not the leaf gamma gain, the log, the shadow, mid, and highlight will work similar as we used to work. So we don't see these ones here, but this conversion is internal. First go to AP0 and then go to AP1. But these color spaces are not created for display. We need to create a transformation to see that, to see how this color space can be looked into a Rec 709 display. So based on that, if we continue our workflow, we go to AP0, then from AP0, we go to AP1 log. This is an internal process. And then from AP1 log, we go again to AP0 and we create what we call an ODT. What is an ODT? Output device transform. And this is the option that is allowing us to see this big white gamut into a display. So let me show you how we can do it. In this case, our display is a Rec 709. So I will move here to Rec 709 and I will click OK. And there you go. Now I see a beautiful image. So let's think about what we did. Yes, all of what we did was we apply this, let's think, three steps. First, we select an IDT that puts everything into a big white gamut. What is doing that big white gamut is doing something similar as this. Is taking all of the camera specification, curves, and so on, and is joining all of them into one big flag. This flag calls AP0 in this case. Then, because AP0 is hard to work, what it's doing is internally, he converts the AP0 to AP1. Yeah, and that is a low color space. And then, because we cannot see the images in AP1, we need to apply an ODT. And what the ODT is doing is that it's mapping the images to the screen we see. And based on that, before continuing, I want to say you that you remember this problem. We had this problem with the scene referred, with the display referred, that if we go into another screen, we need to trim. If we are working in a really big color space, that is, this case is AP0, we don't need to make any more 100% this. Definitely, we need to trim it. But because we are working in a really big color space, the process is not going to be 100%. So for example, as you see, I can move here from, I don't know, let's think to HDR. And now my image will be mapped to an HDR display. Let's move here to a P3. And now my image will be mapped to a, let's say the P3 Rec 709, to a P3 limited with Rec 709. Yes. So now I don't need, in this case, to grade 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, if I'm working based on the scene. And what you will notice also is that if I go to my first slide here, is that our starting point when we were working and manage was a gray image. Now our starting point when we are grading in ACES is already an image that is mapped into a screen. So now I don't need we can say that my starting point is not a flag. It's not a flag starting point. It's not a flat starting point. It's actually a, let's think, a normalized starting point. Okay. Do we have any question in that part, Max?
So far, so good, Diego. Hey, wait a second. There's a question from Jonas. What if we link a Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve? What should be the ACES setup? I think he was asking if we are cutting in Premiere and then we color it in Resolve, right?
All right. Yeah, in this case, I will say that let's export a XML and we conform it, and you don't actually, that will be the only setting. What you need to know to work under a color management framework is that you need to know where the cameras come from, where the footage, what is the main gamma and the transfer cube of the footage.
So
Because
knowing where the source is important, what
Yes.
camera has been used is really important.
Yes.
Because that's the information that you need to know when setting up the input transforms in ACES, right?
Definitely, that's the information. Because, for example, let's go into this case. If I come back here to my presentation, what you will see is that the IDT is putting all of the footage here. The IDT is intelligent with RAW, but not with codec files. So what happened if I import a codec file here? Let's think that this is from Sony. If I import this and I come here to ACES, you will notice first that it looks flat. Then that the colors looks really, they don't look normal. When I mean normal is technically correct. They look with a special, let me come back here. They look with a special or something like that. So what I need to do here is I need to help Resolve. I need to say to him, okay, I need to apply an IDT, because if I continue working with this, what you will notice is that you will destroy the footage. What means destroy the footage? Noise is going to appear, banding is going to appear, many artifacts, digital artifacts. So you need to apply an IDT in order to correctly enter here to our big color space. To do that, what you do is right click in the clip and you need to select an input device transform. And in this case, this is from Sony. I come here and this is from Sony. I will select it. And you will see now that now my footage is already technically correct. So what we need to do is we always need to apply an IDT. If you don't know what is your IDT, don't work in ACES. That will be like what you need to do. You need to know. Also, for example, here is red. So right click, ACES input transform. And if I go here to, this is red, white, gamut, log 3G10, and you will see that now my footage is ready to work. So that is really important. So probably you are thinking, and I would like to finish with this part. You are thinking, okay, I'm not a big post house. I'm not grading HDR. I'm not grading, I don't know, many things. All I'm grading is YouTube or Vimeo. So why do I need to go into ACES? Yeah. So first I will say, you will grade based on all the colors of the scene. That will definitely produce you better results than grading based in all the scenes of the display. And one of the best advantage that I found is that, for example, when you grade with this color science, what the first step that you do is you start in some way moving leaf, moving gain, moving gamma, and then start like putting your image into the screen and then creating the look. Yes, and then you say, okay, I want something like this. When you do this in ACES, let me move again here to ACES really fast. When you move this to ACES, you already have the first part. So now you're ready to do your look. Definitely, you need to move a little bit something up here. Maybe it's too contrasty, maybe it's a little bit more something, but you are going faster to your look. And also, because ACES is taking all of the sources characteristic of each camera, so when you put all of them into one, the matching that is the hardest part of grading is going to be easy. Yes.
Diego, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is a great question from Mike. What if I know that it was shot with a certain camera, for example, red, but I don't know the exact model of the camera? Will it matter?
No, but you need to know the exact color space and the exact transfer curve that was used when recording. That will be the answer. Also,
so understanding the gamut it was shot, right?
Yes, yes. And I will show you an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Probably, I mean, it's really hard to know what was the camera used. For example, in this case, if someone didn't say to me that this was shot in Sony, it's impossible to know. It's impossible to know. If I go to the metadata, I will not find any information. And as probably you know, there are so many cameras that record in MP4, in MXF, or in MOV. So one tip is, for example, this camera here, you don't know it's MOV, but if you go to the technical details here, camera, it will show you that it comes from ARRI. So because in some way the ARRI is the easiest one with all of this color science, it doesn't have many color spaces and so on, you will know what IDT is going to be the one that you need to apply it. Also, probably you are thinking, okay, so I need to do this manually, but if I have, for example, here, some BMDs that also were recorded in MOV, and also this red that were recorded in MOV, can I filter them easily? And what good tip is to create smart bins. So what you can do is right click, add a smart bin, and you can say, okay, this is ARRI. And then from the media pool properties, you are going to move to the camera. And then from the camera type to the camera manufacturer that is going to appear here. Camera manufacturer, and you are going to write ARRI. And because that metadata was in the file, it will filter your clips into one smart folder. So all you need to do is to select all of them and then apply the Alex. But yes, this process is going to be in some way manual. So you have to do it by that way. And one last thing, just because my time is finishing, one last thing. You heard me that ACES is interoperable. Okay, so this means that you can work in ACES in, I don't know, in Cinema 4D. I don't know if you can work, but definitely I think you can. In 3D Max or in Nuke and so on. So if someone is going to do a VFX, what or how do I send a VFX to them? So first, if we go back to the presentation here, we talk about that we have two color spaces, AP0 and AP1. AP0 is going to be the big color space where the footage enter, but AP1 is where we work. Resolve made this conversion automatically between both. But if we are going to transfer between different software, we need to send them in AP0 linear. And also we need a codec that will carry all of this information. And this codec is called the Open EXR. So how can we render an AP0 linear? What we can do is we can come back here. We can select, for example, this, and we can take no output transform. When we select this, we say to Resolve, export an AP0 linear. And then from Resolve, we select here Open EXR, and there you go. You select the kind of Open EXR you wanted, and there you go. You are exporting an AP0 linear. In some other composing program, let's think Nuke, he will open it, he will import it, and he will apply the ACES CG, that is let's think the ACES color space for VFX, and he will send me also this kind of file, AP0 linear. So what this means when he send me, for example, this file, is that this is AP0, and as you notice, this is Open EXR. But when I import this one, and I will apply here to Rec 709 for you guys to see, I'm going to import it here. Sorry. And you will notice that I don't need to apply any IDT, because ACES will know already that is AP0 linear, and I didn't need to apply anything. And this is awesome, because one of the main problems we have in grading is that when someone sends us a VFX, we don't know what is the color space. When we send to VFX, they change the color space, and we have to make many tricks to, in some way, to put all of them to talk one language. When it's ACES, everyone speaks the same language. We work with the highest information, and we have a future-proof, let's think, production or cut. So that was a really fast track in ACES.
Well, you did it very well, Diego. Thank you very much. Before you leave, there's a questions from Jonathan, and he kind of wonder what is like the main difference between ACES with other color management framework. For example, DaVinci Wide Gamut. Is one is better than the other? What is the main difference? I think in my case, it's just the matter of experimentations, right? Depends on how you get used to certain framework. For example, ACES had this specific RRT that can trigger a certain look, but DaVinci Wide Gamut doesn't has it. So sometimes DaVinci Wide Gamut, some people may say that it looks more natural. Meanwhile, ACES has the reference rendering transform that makes it look more filmic. So I think, in my opinion, it's still coming back to you. Which one do you prefer it, right? It's just a matter of the aesthetics.
I will say.
What do you say?
Exactly the same. Here you have something that we also have in Resolve that is called the RRT. That is how the image is mapped from a really big color space to the display. And also we have something here. Here's one here. So this is like, let's think, the secret sauce, the secret part. Is different the one from ACES and the one of Resolve? Yes, definitely. So that's one different point. Also, the behavior of the tool is going to be different. I will say the same as Max, like, okay, you definitely need to try it and see what are the differences. But in favor of ACES, I will say that if your workflow is full of VFX and is full of collaboration with different artists, go with ACES. Go with ACES. Yes, I will definitely go that. And also ACES is, I mean,
because ACES runs in different software as well, right? It's just this universal framework that you mentioned in the beginning.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Diego. That has been like really clear and really helpful. And I hope everybody agree that Diego did it very well. Thank you very much.
I'm watching over and over, Diego. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So
yes.
if you get lost, if you feel like, oh, I'm lost, I really don't know what ACES is really good for, because it's such a huge information crammed into very short presentations. I really recommend you to go to the YouTube and watch the recording and rewatch it or follow along.
Sure.
Well,
yeah. Thanks.
I've had a lot of questions about it myself, Diego, and those projects come up, and I'm like, how do I do it? I'm not sure, and sometimes I'm just a little afraid because I don't. As colorists, we do lean on a lot of our old habits. You know, like, okay, I know this works, I'm going to keep going, but we want to get all that information out of those files. You know, and my pre-conform thing is kind of a backup plan. We want to work with the big files. We want that information.
Exactly.
I mean, this is great. Thank you so much. That's really well done.
Yeah,
Thank you, Diego.
And definitely remember, with Netflix, we did some explanation and videos about this setup
Yes.
and so on.
I will show the link later on.
So you can go back to that videos if you have some questions, especially about deliverables, about all of that HDR workflow, setting up for HDR and so on. And that videos, okay, is there with my funny English, but they are also in Spanish, but they have subtitles in French, Russian, I think so. Right now they have in Japanese, in Portuguese, so they have like 7 language or 6 language subtitles. So you can change it to the language you want it.
Yeah, so let me make myself a presenter. So, if you want to know more about ACES, to learn more about ACES, Diego has kindly provided a learning resource for Netflix. It's called ACES Setup in DaVinci Resolve, and it's a several videos in a playlist, right, Diego? And yeah, it's very detailed, very thorough explanations. So this is a really good companion to the webinar that Diego delivered today. So make sure you visit this video as well.
Okay, so, I need to go, guys, but I leave you with Max because I'm going to make actually the same presentation in Spanish in another event.
Wow.
Thank you, Jonny.
Awesome.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you so much, Diego.
Okay.
Bye.
Have fun.
Here.
Bye. So now that we are in ACES, it's such a great segue because Jonny set it up, how to bring all the clips into Resolve, and Diego talk about ACES. And now I will talk a little bit about how can you use the tools in Maxon arsenal when you want to work in ACES. As you may already know that we have Magic Bullet Suite tools that you can use to color grade. But the question is, can it works in ACES? Previously, I already did a presentations in the sessions before this webinar, and I asked the trainer sessions. So if you already attend the sessions, this will be exactly the same explanations that I provide before. But here is the thing. So normally, when we are not working in a color managed workflow, we have something that looks like this, right? The clip looks flat, and you have to begin somewhere. You have to normalize your image to look good, to look normal, and then after that, you apply a grade on top of that, right? So here is a project which is set up in DaVinci YRGB, which means that I'm not color managed, and it has Gamma Rec 709 with Gamma 2.4. So normally what you can do is that you can work by, going to timeline and then create the looks in the timeline, and it will affect all the clips, right? But before we're doing that, as you can already see, if a clip is not grouped in Resolve, it only have 2 groups, the clip level and then the timeline level. But when you start to group clips together, so for example, here I select all the 3 clips and then right click and add into new groups, and let's just call it group A. You will notice that I unlock 2 others category, and that is the group pre-clip, which means that the adjustment will be applied before the clip, and then the group post-clip means that the adjustment will be applied after the clip, but before the timeline. Timeline means like all your adjustment will be applied to all the clips in the timeline. So for example, here, if I apply the groupings again into this second groups, add into new groups, and maybe call it group B, and hit OK. As you can see, there's a link icon here, which shows that they belongs to the same group. And again, another thing is like what Jonny showed us before, that he works with a node structure, right? Fixed node structure. In this case, you can also do that and maybe put your node structure in the clip level. For example, here I have a mock-up of a node structure, which consists of 4 different nodes. So if I want to apply it to all my clips, I can just select all my clips and go to the node structure and use the middle click in my mouse and apply it there. So that's literally it, right? So if I am not color managed, what I'm gonna do is like, okay, I will probably do the contrast, how do you call it, normalize my image, adjusting the contrast, adjusting the saturations manually. But maybe I can also do with LUT. So in this case, probably I'll just apply LUT to the clip, and it will apply to the same clip in the group. And then probably now I can go to the clip level, and then I will just do some balancing before I start grading my clip, right? So for example, maybe bring the gamma up a little bit, put the lift down a little bit, bring the gain down, or maybe put the black a little bit more and highlight down a little bit more, and something like that. I quite like it. Or yeah, and to apply these changes to all the clips in the group, I can just simply go to color and ripple node changes to current group, and everything is applied there. And for example here, maybe I should do the white balance because it looks a little bit too warm, and I can do so. I can check the white balance if it's too warm or not by selecting the qualifier and go to your viewport, right click, and then show RGB picker value. And here I can see that the red value is 116, 116, and 116. Well, my eyes playing trick on me, so they're looking good, so they are balanced. What you're saying, Max? This is balanced. So I don't need to adjust the color balance. So what about if I want to create a look on top of that? I can go to the timeline, but before, let's not forget these 2 clips here. Let us just tackle these clips while we're here. So again, I will balance them a little bit. Sorry, normalize them a little bit. Sorry, I should not normalize them, but I can use LUT and just select the same LUT because it's shot with the same camera, and I will just balance them a little bit. And yeah, I'll open up the shadow, putting the highlight down and bring the black down, maybe something like that. And then I will just ripple to the other groups. So really fast. Okay, now if I want to create a look, probably the good strategy is to put the look on the timeline level, because it will apply to the all groups, right? One things that you can use if you have Magic Bullet Suite is that you can use Mojo tools, because Mojo is a very fast grading tools. What it does in the back end is that it takes all your highlight and put it in the warm side, and take your shadows and put it in a more cooler side. So here I already have a LUT before that transformed to Rec 709. So yeah, I can just change the footage into video and start working with any presets that I like, or just tweak the things that the controls that I have. So that's literally it, and it will be applied to all my timeline clips. But what if I'm working in a color manage framework? Like Diego was saying before, I can just wait a minute. I will just delete all the LUT and work in a color manage workflow. So for example, here, what Diego said before, we can work in ACES. we can work either with ACCC or ACCCT. In this case, I'll just choose ACCC. The input device transform, since it's all Alexa clip, it should be fine. And output transform, I want to transform it to Rec 709. Okay, it should be good. And by doing so, I have a good starting point because my image looks normal. I don't need to do the manual normalizations again. And here I already have the balance before, so it all look good. And now I can do the same strategy, use the same strategy, and probably if I want to use Mojo again and just drop it in a timeline, it will look wrong. Why? Because Mojo is taking any clip and then outputting the clips into a video level, but we are still in ACES framework. That's why it looks overly contrasty. And how do I handle this problem? Well, if you have Magic Bullet Suite, you can use Magic Bullet Looks. And to do so, you can just drop Magic Bullet Looks, hit edit to launch the designer interface, and soon you will be in Magic Bullet Looks. And the thing that you need to be aware in Magic Bullet Looks is that there is the input and output gamma transform. So in this case, I'm working in ACCC, so I can just tell Magic Bullet Looks, hey, I want to work in ACCC, and please don't output it as sRGB, but just output it same as input or ACCC, right? I'll select that, and this is just the sRGB preview. Instead of having like flat image, you have the like image that is previewed in sRGB. So here I can just use the same Mojo tools and maybe select something like that, play around with the value a little bit, and I have my looks. And I can set the opacity, the amount of the effects, like how much I would like it. But the thing is, like, the question is that it, or is there any way to set up ACES and work with Magic Bullet Looks? Yes, there's another way, as Diego already mentioned before, that you can set up ACES customly. You can set a custom ACES in Node, and in this case, I will show you that quickly. So let us reset this by pressing Control Home and go to the, yeah, I think that's okay. This one. All right, fine. So close this, and I will reset my color managements into DaVinci YRGB Gamma 2.4, right? Press save, and now you should see the flat image again. I am now in unmanaged color framework. So what I can do is that I can try to mimic the transformations in the nodes. And I can do that by using the ACES Transform Open Effects. So here I have ACES Transform Open Effects, and I can just tell Resolve that I have an Alexa clip and I want to work in ACCC. And I can go to my timeline and exactly do the opposite, use ACES Transform and say to tell Resolve that I want to go from ACCC and I want to port it out to Rec 709. And I literally have the same transformations like what you see in the project settings level, right? Perhaps in this groups, we have to set up the input transform because we haven't done it. So this is Alexa goes to ACES CC. Right. Now I have the possibility to work in ACES after this node, or here, and or here before this output transform. Or I can also work in the Rec 709 color space after the output transform. So what's so good about that? So for example, if you're using Magic Bullet Looks, here I can show you another way, another fun way that you can use Magic Bullet Looks. So for example, I can create a node before the ACES transformations. It means that I'm working in the camera color space now. I'm working in the log C. So I can drop magic bullet looks before the transformations. And as you probably aware, there are 4 types of tools inside Magic Bullet Looks. One is selective, one is camera, color corrections, and film emulations, right? What if I just want to play around with the lights? I can do that. First, I will set it to Alexa, because we are in Alexa color space at the moment, and output it back as Alexa, and I'll just use the diffusions. So for example, like this.
Cool.
And for example, if I want to go a little bit more, I'll just use haze and flare to create hazy and flary look. And in diffusions, you can play around with all the settings, but there are already presets. I like this one. And with the haze flare, probably reduce the spillage a little bit, maybe around 15, something like that, and increase the softness. And by confirming it, I already have a clip in the camera color space with all the manipulated light. And here I can just like adjust it maybe around 50 or maybe around 30. So now what I can do is that I can shape my clip further in the clip level or do anything in the post clip. And then later on, I can also work in ACES and create the look in ACES by using Magic Bullet Looks. So in this case, we can just set it to ACES, CC, and the output same as input. And for example, we worked with Mojo before, so let us just put Mojo. Maybe use the something like that, around 15. Okay. Reduce the saturations, bleach it, like the process bleach bypass. And there you go. I pretty much has it. So this is the full, and you can play around with the amount. I think 35 is a good balance. And there you go. I have Magic Bullet Looks before ACES, and I'm just playing around with the lights. And I have Magic Bullet Looks in ACES, playing around with the color. And if I want to go further, I can work after the transformations. Means like I'm working in the Rec 709. So another tool in the Magic Bullet suite that I normally use is that the film emulations. And film emulations is a tool that allows you to quickly emulate film, different film negative and print stocks, print films. So in this case, since I'm already outputting my video, my signal to Rec 709, I can select video. And here I have 11 different film that I can choose.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
Yeah. And it was a real scan of a real film. So I can either use a Fujifilm, for example, or any Kodak, and select the print stock, something like that. And here I can play around with the contrast, maybe reduce the contrast, but there's here a vintage and modern slider. Maybe I can make it look more modern or make it look more vintage, maybe just a little bit like that, and add the contrast a little bit. So I have the film emulations after the transformations to Rec 709. And as you can see here, there's a grain slider, but the grain slider in film is a little bit one dimensions. Another thing that you can do is that there is also a renoiser plugin inside Magic Bullet Suite that you can use, and it has all the possibility for you to change to set the grains. So in this case, I can either use all this slider, or I can just simply select the presets. And in this case, I select a preset called the Classic 35. But as I can see, it has too much grain in the midtone area. You can adjust that. You can adjust the amount of the grain in the color channel. Or what I want to show today is just I can just reduce the grain in the midtone area, maybe put it to 50, and boost the highlight area maybe put around 100.
Love that. That's pretty awesome, Max.
And that's, yeah, Jonny.
Love this ability
So-
to change the grain, the texture, and that's I've not used this part of it, and I add grain all the time, you know, and that's
Yeah.
great. Wow, way to
And
go.
what's nice with the Magic Bullet renoiser is that it's not a grain layer on top of your image. So for example, if I use something like very obvious, like this Super 8, you can see that it is taking all the pixels on in your image and restructure them. So this is before.
It looks nice and random, you know, and that's what's
Yeah.
the cool about grain. Grain is random, you know, and
Exactly.
that's why we miss it so much, you know. That's really a nice that's a nice package. That's really great.
Thank you so much. So, and yeah, that's all about it, about Magic Bullet Suite. If you want to work inside ACES, you can, and that's the trick to do it inside ACES. So I hope everyone had blast today. I hope everyone enjoying the sessions. And I think we should wrap up today's sessions because we'll run over for 10 minutes.
Oh man, when you're having fun, how can you stop?
We're having fun. I hope everyone's having fun as well. So yeah, let me point you out to the next sessions, which will happen in next Thursday. And on next sessions, we will invite all the guest speaker that we have. So Jonny will be rejoining us, Diego will rejoin us, Tony will rejoin us, and also there's another guest speaker, Moritz Fortman. He will join us as well, and we will make the sessions as a interactive discussions and chat. So I will ask our guest speakers the questions that you probably want to hear. How do they get started in the industry? What are their challenge? What are the most difficult things that they have to deal with, be it in the grade, be it in the management? How is it? And we will ask them to share their story with us. So stay tuned next week. It will be interesting if you want to hear the personal story from our guest speaker. And yeah, just to point you out, if you want to watch the recording will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. It's called the Maxon Training Channel. And today's sessions, you can follow along Jonny's sessions because Jonny has kindly provided us with a file, and you can get that file in the download link that you see in the registrations page. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jonny, for joining us.
Great.
And I wish to see everyone and you again next week, Jonny.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much. I had a blast, and it's my first one, so this is awesome.
You did great, man. It's really great. Man. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge.
Oh, you bet. My pleasure. It's a lot of fun. It's awesome.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.